Welcome to Moksa Workflow Manager training movies. This is the second movie for exercise 4. In this workflow, we created in the first part, we created a workflow, and this workflow uses the workflow collection. It moves files in and it moves files out. In this example, a designer, somebody will start in the portal a task, will provide files to the commission task. The commission task will create a new design and upload it. The uploaded design will go to the approver, but the provided files from the portal will go to the workflow basket. At the end of the workflow, these same files will go back into the workflow so that they will be all contained in the create collection task, in the collection that is created at the end of the workflow. Let's see it at work. By the way, before I started, I noticed that I made a typo. This needs to be 4. Well, you can always go into a workflow and change its name as long as you did not use this workflow as in a template task. If this workflow is called in a template task, you should in that template task change the name. It is not linked, so it doesn't know that you just changed this name. But you can change of any main workflow the name at any point. So I now go to sites, refresh my screen, and I log in as a user that has the permission to start workflows because it has the $workflow portal permission in the user or role defined. So the user is allowed to click on this on this button, and the user sees all 4 training movies, training workflows. I select the 4th one, and I can set the workflow details, being the name and the start date, and I can use the input records. As I mentioned before, for the input records, in this example, I'm going to use a couple of files that we are no longer going to use afterwards. So I can upload the file. I'm going to upload these files because I want the user to be able to use them in his first task. But further down the line, these images will no longer be used in the workflow, but they will still be present. So I made an example here. I added 2 files to the workflow that the first person in the workflow will need and can use. So I'm selecting a user, and I'm keeping the task administrator as it is set. I can provide additional information. They are not mandatory here, so I can choose to put them or not. Additional information instructions are very important because this is the description of what you expect the participants to do. Create flyer for 2014. As I mentioned before, you can upload additional files they can use, maybe a style guide, maybe a description, maybe the texts for the design, etc. But it's not mandatory. Here I get my summary of what I've entered. It's an overview that you can go back and change if you see something that was not correct, and then you can submit. As soon as you submit, the backend engine will create this workflow and will notify the first user, the first participant in this workflow. So for that, we go to the mail, and the first participant is in this workflow, I think Bill. So I check his mail, and yes, there is the link. There is the mail coming in. Training 4, workflow collection, create new flyer. And as you can see, my placeholder of the user is replaced. So now it says, in previous examples, it says something like dear customer, or at least here it says, or dear participant. In this one it nicely says dear Mr. William B. Gunter. And then we have the admin of the task, which is Erwin Marcus, the workflow admin, which is the person who started the workflow. Here are the instructions that I added, and here are the 2 records files that were provided into this workflow. And if I click on this link, it opens the task inside Sites. As always, on the left, the description, the generic description for the task to perform. Here in the additional instructions, the instructions for the complete workflow, and at the bottom the additional info fields. I can download the file and use it. I can afterwards, if this was a correction of a file, I could upload it, check it back in, but in this case I just want to create a new design with these 2 files. So I click on download. It downloads, it gives me the ability to download the file, and the same for the other file. I can save it, and I can use these 2 files in my design. When I'm ready with my design, I come back to this interface. So you could have chosen to close this to say, okay, I've gathered the information or the files that I wanted. So now I go to my design, and in my design I'm going to perform the task that is requested from me. Later I come back and I can say, okay, now I upload my work into this workflow. So I can here select the file that I've created. Most of the time this will be a PDF version of what you created, because the next person in the workflow, the next task to be performed is an approval task, and that person might not have, for instance, InDesign, the application in which you might have made your design, you created your work. So very often a PDF is offered, because that is the interface that a lot of users can read, open, and even annotate. I'm submitting my task. I'm finished. This person has finished the job. And now we go to the mail. The next person in this workflow is Martin. And Martin already got an email. I click on the link, and Martin is now asked to perform his task. The description here, the generic description, the workflow information, and only 1 record, namely the uploaded file. You can see now that the workflow collection has 2 records. If I click here, here are my 2 files that were uploaded. That were provided in the portal. You can upload additional files if you are permitted. You can download the complete basket. So you can download the individual files, and if you have the permission, you could also remove them from the collection basket. At this point, I'm interested in this file. I can download it, proof it, and then I can decide, okay, I approve or I reject. In this case, I approve. In case of an approval, comment is not mandatory. The backend has checked my choice and has registered my comment. So all that is left for me to do is submit. And this was the last user task or approval task, commission task for this workflow. So now the backend will create the collection, and in our collection there should be not one but 3 files. One file from the workflow itself and one file from the workflow collection. If I check my mail, I can see that Martin received an email. A new collection has been created, called with that name, and now with a click on this link I could open the task, not the task but the collection window. So this was an example on how you can interact with the workflow collection. Thank you for joining, and see you in the next movie.